Hey Fred, another reply to one of your videos. I've been thinking about this for a little while, and I just wanted to call attention to the recent reemergence of of thinking of the world not in terms of space, which is which is how you would have to conceive of things in a pure in a world where humans uh, understood themselves and uh, their situation and and others in terms of space, which is what the Newtonian paradigm of Newtonian physics and mechanics and kinematics would demand. There's a reemergence of this idea of thinking of uh, the world and as primordially or originally uh, manifested and lived in as a place, not space. So place versus space. This is the topic of this this video response. And so I read a few things. You could have a physical, a structure, arrangement of surfaces and gases in the atmosphere and whatever, energy, radio, electromagnetic waves, all the whole kit and caboodle. You could have that all going on, right? Um, and it could be practically, for all practical intents and purposes, it could be identical to another configuration. And let's say one of those rooms is a kitchen, the other one is a conference room, right? Um, they can be identical, but if one is a conference room and the other one is a kitchen, you're going to get two different human behaviors going on there, different uh, understandings of, self-understanding and other regarding, or when you look at other people and the way that they act, different ways of making sense will be different. Ways of the intelligibility and their ability to um, to tell or to articulate the sequence and the rhythm of what's going on there. That engagement with that environment with the kitchen will be different from you just can't come into a conference room and start making an omelet. It just won't make sense, and the you know, people will not be confused by what you're doing, and so that is already a sort of example of how that's just not a Newtonian uh, universe that you're dealing with, a purely in terms of Newtonian physics and mechanics. Um, Newtonian mechanics, the space and time of Newton is derived from the practical, scientific, mathematical context that he sort of abstracted his mathematics out of the place. He abstracted this absolute container of space that was independent of things, of its contents and the relations between those contents. Um, he abstracted that out of the world, the human world in which he was living and had been born into and grew up in and developed in. Um, so like, yeah, let's say that you have a concert hall and an auditorium. They could be identical or very similar as far as Newtonian surfaces and the physical structure and arrangement of items in there could be for more or less the same. And you're going to get it just doesn't make sense to get up in the middle of the where you're supposed to be giving a speech or whatever and start singing. It won't make sense. I mean, I think making sense and sense making, um, these were all topics that you were trying to discuss. Um, so yeah, so places are organized in terms of the practices that are sustained by those places and the practices that sustain in turn those places. So you will have a different physical arrangement of chairs if you want people to be in a room in a circle to have a discussion versus if you want to give a lecture and you'll have a different arrangement of chairs. You'll have an audience and a place for the speaker, a podium. And that's how the humans understand that place, not in terms of objective space or mechanics, but in terms of um, the practices that are going on there, for the most part, primarily, originally. Um, So there's no such thing as like, the purpose, the the reason for getting together. There's nothing like that in the Newtonian universe, and I think that we certainly don't understand other people, especially in more romantic engagements that you were talking about. Not in terms of Newtonian physics. There's no normativity in Newtonian physics. Newtonian physics came out of our practical world of where we engage with the world and where we can tell what is relevant and what's not. Nothing is relevant or irrelevant in the Newtonian, purely mechanistic universe, and everything is just the same. Everything is just points, and that's defined by some external metric and defined by the person measuring. But in in the place, things that are near and far, and these relationships that we have to the environment are based on their significance and the relevance, and our past and our projected future. And it's just totally foreign and alien to try to understand the human place experience, that original lived, our life in terms of the Newtonian space and time. With Newtonian space and time, there's not even a here and a now. You could have a full physical description of the universe in terms of Newtonian, or as full as you could get in terms of Newtonian physics, and you would have there would be no here and now anywhere in that description. So, these are big, big discrepancies. I mean, maybe I'm picking on your argument. Maybe that's not wasn't the essence of your argument, but these are things you said, and I think, you know, they are still relevant to what you were trying to talk about how we won't, for the reasons why we just can't, we might find it very, very difficult, to put it that way, of understanding the micro level or the macro level even. It's not because we understand things in terms of Newtonian mechanics. It's because we understand things in terms of place, and maybe I would even grant maybe on some level an ecological physics, but not a Newtonian mechanical physics. That's just that's not organic. That's an abstraction that works for the purposes that are originally given in the 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 practical and human environment and world we live in. So there's this Newtonian universe, but that doesn't tell us about our understanding of the human world. But I mean, I think that you were basically on target talking about, I think you were trying to talk about was the human scale of, you know, stuff, objects, um, not atoms. So what's we doing? Yeah, I agree with that part, but I just, think that it deserves uh, to be said and to be, you know, articulated carefully, and um, that we acknowledge the the really genuine character of, or the factual character of the world, and that's not a Newtonian universe. Anyway, I've gone on too long. I just wanted to say that, and point out that um, you know norms. Let's say that you have. The last thing I'll say is that let's say that you have a law that says that at 8 o'clock at night there's a curfew. In the Newtonian universe, at when the clock strikes 8, and the judges declared that everyone has to be off the streets, nothing happens in the Newtonian universe at 8 o'clock. It's only in the world, the human world, as I've described before, where anything happens at 8 o'clock. There's nothing physical, no physical efficient causation that happens in the Newtonian universe at 8 o'clock. But in the human world, there is something very real that happens at 8 o'clock. All right.